Welcome to Projects for All. My name's Mike, and today we got the MasterForce 10-inch table saw back in the shop. I'm pretty excited because there's a lot of cool stuff going on here, and it's one of the better budget offerings we've checked out in quite a while. So let's get in here. We already did the calibrations. Obviously, we put it together. You can see that video. I'll link it right here. This is the second video. We're gonna do the overview and all the cutting. We'll do a fat dado and check it out. We got the plate for it. We have a calibration or two that are left, like the fence being perpendicular to the tabletop. And I saved that for this video because there's a few things to discuss just in the design of the fence. All right, so we'll start on the front like we always do. We have our switch, basic paddle, on, off. The box shows this exact switch and says there's a feature for a lockout key to pull out of this to lock your saw. So if you have an orange cat at home or you're gonna put this in a school, you should be able to lock this down. However, I don't see a key anywhere on this thing. Clearly I'm losing my mind. I don't see anything here that pulls out. There's nothing underneath. You guys have this saw, you tell me. I don't see anything on the box in the back either. So I'm assuming they went with a different design, even though they show a picture of this in the box, which is super weird. You also have a reset button right here. So we got blade up and blade down. We have our bevel lever. This locks our saw and allows us to bevel up to 45 degrees. Locks up nice and secure. Our bevel scale is nice and easy to read. We have our adjusting knob for our rack and pinion fence system. And we have a push stick. Push stick. ABS plastic, because it says right there, totally basic push stick, but slides nicely in the slot here. There's a little plastic clip or a bump on there. It doesn't want to come out. Here on our right side, got a few things going on. We got a thumb screw or a little knob that's threaded, just plastic threaded knob. Holding our two wrenches on this stud here. They are exactly the same as the Cobalt. But I'm pretty sure in that video, if it didn't get edited out, I noted that there was a hole, and that would have been a better way to attach these because the Cobalt has a little plastic tray right about here, and everything just kind of fits in it. And these just loosely press fit in, and I could see if you're actually going to take it to a job site or transport it anywhere, these would immediately get lost, which would be a big problem. Got our blade guard, which is plastic that's pin painted silver. It looks like metal, but it is not. A pin on the spring. It has a couple detents to hold it up out of the way. And it fits very nicely on its metal bracket right here. Just pull the pin. Very simple and easy. Here's your fence lock. That is unlocked. There's locked. Locks up super tight. And your fence slides with ease. Very nice. Here on the back side, we got a few things going on. We have our kickback pawl. This mounts to this bracket right here. We have a 2.5-inch dust port. Nice and metal. Plenty of space to clamp to. There's a thumb screw right here. I showed this in the last video, but it's worth noting again. Opens up to a little trapdoor so you can get what you need out of here. I'm always dropping stuff down in the blade area, so that is nice. I like it. It's captive. It ain't going anywhere. It's not a thumb screw. No tools. Nice design. Here on the right side, we got a couple things going on. You got your plastic motor housing and a place where you can get your brushes out of your motor. You got your miter gauge. Miter gauge is not worth talking about. It's just plastic. At least it's screwed to its piece of aluminum stock, I guess. But it includes a miter gauge, so I guess better than nothing. There's two locking knobs, one for either rod for your outfeed table. I just realized this was real loose. So this is 6 mil. It's a little 6 mil bolt. And the end of the rod here is threaded. It wasn't so loose it was gonna fall out, but I noticed that the outfeed plate was moving around. That one was a little loose too. There we go. Works really nice, actually. It's got 3/4 of an inch of a flat spot on top. And it's got a knob that locks on either side. It does stick out a little more than some of these do. Like fully retracted, it sticks out a little more. Clearly the outfeed is optional, but it sticks out from your saw about 3.5 inches past the end of your rail there. If you don't want it on there, you certainly don't have to install it. Here we are on the left side. You have your cord keeper. It is nicely designed on here, but it's not big enough and the cord keeps coming loose. So it's got 12 feet of cord, which is 6 more feet than you normally get. Vigorous Electric Company Ltd. Cord keeper, not a terrible design, but I think they could have done a little better. Made it a little bigger. Also, the prong on here, I like when they put a prong, but the prong does not lock to the cord very well. So it slips back, this whole thing loosens up, and it falls off of there. Not the end of the world, but, you know, I noticed it, and now you know about it. Tabletop dimensions, 22 by about 26.25. The outfeed's not huge, but it's better than nothing. And it'll bring you back another 9 inches off the back of your saw. This knob sticks out kind of far, and from your outfeed all the way to the front of that knob is almost exactly 31 inches. So this thing gets pretty wide. Just be aware if you're going through small doorways or you don't have a lot of space in the truck, this is going to be a fairly wide saw. Now, of course, you can not put the screws in, the stop screws on the ends, so when you unscrew the knobs, you can just pull it right off of there real easy. You have that option. From the front of your blade to the front of your table is just about 7.5 inches. Working tabletop height, 33.5 inches. The ruler on this one is about as easy to read as it gets. I can see this from across the room. I like the contrasting black on white. The adjustable plexiglass pointer is not my favorite design, but hey man, it works, and it's adjustable with a couple Phillips head screws. Boasting an impressive max rip of 32.5 inches. As per usual, these often go past the max rip line, and this one gets a solid 33 inches of max rip. Norm with rack and pinion fences, you have 3 positions for your fence. You got left side cutting. This one will get you all the way to your blade for 0. And then you have the farthest one, which is 8 inches exactly from this one, which will get you your full rip of 33 inches. It has the DeWalt style hook that goes underneath the stud, and then the plastic part sits right on the rail, which is not a bad design. I like that the contact points are metal to grab on underneath here. This is just plastic, sits on there. Extra feature on this saw, this strange L-shaped fence. The fence itself will pivot down and become its own support. So if you have this stretched way out, you have this nice support here. That's 1 3/4 of support on the outside, which is nice. Pivot it back, and it sits flush and normal. I do believe that's the lock position. What we need to talk about here is the lock position for this knob doesn't really lock it. I mean, it makes it harder. It is definitely easier to move when it's unlocked. But when you lock it, it does not take a ton of effort. Just the strength of my fingers doing that to get it to move. The other problem I foresee with this design is the fence perpendicular with the table. And the answer is no. No again. I mean, you can see that gap right there. The top of this fence is leaning this way. Is that because I didn't have it all the way? Maybe. It is still not perfect, but it's better. I can tweak this and get it damn near perfect. It's more perfect in the middle, but on the end, it's just slightly bowed. This fence bows, the top of it bows that way when you get towards the end there. I mean, it's slight, but it's there. But really, how are you gonna know that you're perpendicular after you move this? I mean, if you grab this and move it back and forth, we're screwed up again. So if you own this saw, go get a nice square if you don't have one. I mean, you should have one anyway, but get a nice square, and I swear every time you move this fence, I would just check it real quick, make sure it's where you find it satisfactory, because it's always going to be off. Off. There's your little bit of gap. Try to tweak this thing. That's close enough for me, for sure. And we're off again. I mean, I'm jostling this thing pretty good, but that is just my fingers tweaking it back and forth, and we're back to being off. So if you are a perfectionist, then you're gonna have a little bit of an issue with this style fence. To really make this work, I would say everything is gonna have to be metal. There's gonna have to be some very strong detents to click this into the right position, and the lock is gonna have to be just solid. And this saw is boasting none of those features. So it is what it is. I got it pretty darn straight enough to where I'm happy with it, but it's gonna have to be checked, especially if you're trying to build something with any precision. Here's our throat plate. We got a latch on the side here. That way is unlocked. And our throat plate comes right off of there. It's not a bad throat plate, it's metal. It's very nicely finished, which brings me to this throat plate, which is exactly the same freaking thing, but it looks like a factory second. It is pretty rough. Somebody clearly went at it with a grinder. This is the one off the Cobalt. Fits on there. This saw in general, this Menards saw, the fit and finish here is just nicer. So we got our 10-inch blade, 2-wrench flat spot on the back of the arbor here. I know the little lever is popular. I don't have a problem with the 2-wrench design. It's pretty hard to screw this up or break something. There's nothing really mechanical involved here. Arbor nut, arbor washer, general purpose, max RPM 7,000. Excellent for softwoods. You got 5 stars for softwoods, 4 for hardwoods. Plywood, 2 stars. Oh no. Well, we're gonna do it anyway. 5/8 arbor, 10 inches, 40 tooth, general purpose. Good enough. I know from the Cobalt that this comes off. There's your flat spots. I don't have a problem when they do this, because if somehow you manage to round this off over years, you can just replace it. 3-position riving knife on the lever. No adjustments on this riving knife. I went over this in the other video, but there is no set screws, no nothing. The detents fit nice and tight. This thing feels great. It feels like very good quality, but it is not adjustable. Luckily for me, mine's perfect. I might be crazy, but this arbor looks longer than the arbor on the Cobalt. We'll find out when we put the dado stack on it. I'll know instantly, because 3/4 dado, and there was no arbor left to put the nut on, like none. So I opted to go for a 5/8, I believe, dado on that one, just for my own sanity. I know there were comments about you really don't need this outer washer when you're using a dado stack, but you know what? I'm a fan, so to each his own. You do you. Now, I'm still absolutely amazed that this is something I have to check. I mean, we can make all the Taiwanese factory barometric pressure jokes we want to, but in the end, give me a break. The ruler on this, dead nuts accurate. All the way to the end is the same at 0 as it is at 24. Why do I have to say these things? Good job, MasterForce, for putting a ruler that's accurate on a table saw. Nice job. All right, so we have the dado insert for this. Mike, you say, what kind of shenanigans happened here? Well, we use this, which is why it looks used. We use this for the Cobalt. Why? One, because it fits, and I bought it with this saw because I had both of these saws in the box at the same time. This is 242-4533 dado insert. Was in stock at Menards when I went in there to buy this saw. Lowe's thinks this is worth 50 bucks. And I would contend it is exactly the same product because their regular plates are exactly the same. So it would not fit flush. On the Cobalt, I took my grinder to it, and it fit perfect after that. It fits here, it locks down. It is needing an adjustment. However, and I took a lot of material off the bottom of this thing. So it needs an adjustment, but it doesn't seem to be any different. Now the fit and finish of this is considerably poorer than this. This is finished nice. This looks finished, 100%. This? Nah, this looks like nonsense. This ain't a beauty pageant. You know, it's a freaking table saw throat plate. Just know, if you own the Cobalt and want the Dado plate, Menards has it on the website. There we go. So we got our outfeed table behind our outfeed that's extended. We've got a veneered stair tread, 1x2x pine, red oak, 3/4 inch plywood, and there's a 1/2 inch sheet on the other side. So let's start with the plywood. We'll work our way bigger, and we'll run us a fat dado. If you missed the first video, this saw runs at a very, very pleasant max 88, 89 decibels, and it's got soft start, which is very nice. Every time I forget to start the dust collector. Well, I remember saying that the Cobalt wasn't half bad at the dust collection, and this one is pretty much exactly the same. A little bit better than the Bosch, I would say. Last thing I'll show you, this is your auxiliary fence. Unlock it, you flip that up, and it just sits on your fence. That locks it down. It does seem to lock down, but there's a serious gap between this and the table, and this is just flexible ABS plastic. And I guess to get it to sit flat with the table, you can tilt your fence over. But yeah, I would never use this. I never use the ones that are metal, that are designed well, that fit in one of the slots on the end of the fence. I don't use those, so the chance of me using this, slim to none. If this were my table saw, I'd probably just throw this in the trash, which is a shame because even though I don't really use it very often, it does have a practical purpose that would be nice to have occasionally. Well, here we are, 3/4 dado. That would be 2 outers, 3 chippers, 2 spacers, and enough arbor left for our nut and our washer. This has a proper large arbor to fit a full dado stack, unlike the Cobalt. The Cobalt, when we did this, that arbor was right at the end of the washer. There was no putting the nut on. We get a 3/4 dado on this one, no BS. There we are, ready to go. Green treated pine, 4x4. We got a 3/4 by 1.5 inch tall dado. Let's see how powerful this saw is. I don't usually do these all in one day, but this saw I did all in one day. I'm tired. It's hot in here. What did we end up? You guys tell me, where did we end up? What do you guys think about this one? I like it. It has enough high-end features and it does enough right, in my opinion, that it warrants the price asked, which is about 380 bucks. It is about $100 or so more than the Skill when it's on sale. You get an outfeed, you get a longer rip, you get big wheels, you get a scissor stand, you get full dado, you get more with this. You give up a few things. This goofy fence situation, not a huge fan. It's not a deal breaker because you can be made to be straight, but you should be checking it often, if not every cut. The flatness of the table is probably the worst part. 20 thou, give or take. What do you think? Deal breaker? Not for me, because I would never try and build heirloom furniture on this. It's just not something I would do. Now, some people would, and that's okay, and you're gonna have to find something a little bit flatter and straighter than this. But for your average user, for sub $400, sits it right in that little sweet spot between, you got the ultra budget, the budget at 300, you got this one, and then you get into 600, 650, 700 for the Bosch, the Skill saw, those saws. It sits right in the middle between the two, and it's one of the few, and it gives you features that you wouldn't get on the $300 saws, period. I think it's cool, and nobody's ever seen it before because there's not a video. You get nothing on the internet about this. No videos on YouTube, no nothing. So I think it's a great option. I think if you review tools on YouTube, you should get off your butt and check this thing out because it ain't bad. It ain't bad. And I'd love to see a couple more examples get reviewed where people actually check them. And we'll see if this is either the best one they ever made or it could be the worst. Who knows? It's one saw and I'm one guy and all I can do is show you what's right here. But if you're in that price range but you don't want to commit to a $600, $700 saw, I think you could do worse than this, honestly. Which shocks me, because once we reviewed the Cobalt a couple weeks ago and it had problems, and I'm looking at this and they're very similar, they use a lot of similar parts, and I'm thinking to myself, crap, now I have to review 2 bad saws that are the same. And that would have sucked. I am pleasantly surprised. Thank you so much for watching. If you're inclined, hit subscribe because it helps me pay for all this crazy expensive stuff, and we're gonna do a lot more table saws. We got the Hercules miter saw coming up. I have the rigid our 4560. I can't believe I didn't remember that. It's literally behind the camera. I'm looking right at it. In the box, we're gonna do the miter saw, then the rigid. We got some little stuff coming, or some tools getting sent over. So we might throw something else in there. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.